Here are 6 lies people believe about INTPs. Number 1. INTPs are lazy and unmotivated. INTPs have a reputation for being lazy, but the truth is more complicated. They aren't lazy, they're selectively motivated. If something challenges their mind and sparks their curiosity, they can work with obsessive intensity, often forgetting to eat or sleep. However, if a task feels repetitive, overly structured, or pointless, they struggle to engage with it, leading others to assume they lack motivation. What looks like laziness is often an issue of interest, not ability. INTPs thrive in intellectual freedom, where they can explore ideas on their own terms. When forced into rigid environments like school or corporate settings with unnecessary bureaucracy, they tend to mentally check out rather than push through just for the sake of it. This isn't because they don't care, but because they resist spending energy on things they see as inefficient or lacking depth. Another reason INTPs appear unmotivated is their nonlinear work style. Unlike those who tackle tasks in an orderly, step-by-step fashion, INTPs work in bursts of intense focus, followed by long periods of apparent inactivity. This gives the illusion of inconsistency, but in reality, their minds are still working, processing ideas, making connections, and waiting for the right moment of inspiration to strike. Number 2. INTPs don't care about people. INTPs often come across as detached, lost in their thoughts, and uninterested in social conventions. Because of this, people assume they don't care about others. But this couldn't be further from the truth. INTPs do care, but their way of expressing it is far less obvious than what most people expect. Rather than offering emotional reassurance or engaging in small talk, INTPs show they care in intellectual ways. They express affection by sharing knowledge, offering unique insights, or helping solve problems. If an INTP spends time explaining a complex idea, debating a topic with someone, or sending a thought-provoking article, it's often their way of showing interest and appreciation. To them, meaningful conversations and mental connection are far more valuable than superficial pleasantries. That said, INTPs struggle with emotional expression and may appear indifferent in situations where others expect warmth or reassurance. It's not that they don't feel emotions, it's that they process them internally and analytically, making it difficult to outwardly display concern in the expected way. They may genuinely worry about someone's well-being, but instead of offering comforting words, they might suggest a logical solution or question the situation from a different perspective. At their core, INTPs care deeply, but they don't always know how to show it in a conventional way. Their emotional detachment is often misinterpreted as coldness, when in reality, they are simply wired to connect with others through ideas and shared curiosity, rather than emotional exchanges. Those who take the time to understand them will find that behind their analytical exterior lies a thoughtful and loyal mind that values deep connections, even if they don't always say it outright. Number 3. INTPs are socially awkward. INTPs are often labeled as socially awkward because they don't follow traditional social norms, struggle with small talk, and sometimes seem lost in their own thoughts. While they may not be the most outwardly charismatic personality type, that doesn't mean they're inherently awkward or incapable of social interaction. In reality, their social tendencies are situational and largely depend on the environment and the people they're engaging with. In casual or superficial social settings, INTPs can appear disinterested, distracted, or even blunt, which can be mistaken for awkwardness. They often find small talk pointless and exhausting, preferring deep, meaningful conversations over polite chatter. Because of this, they may struggle to engage in light social interactions in a way that feels natural. However, when discussing a topic they're passionate about, their demeanor completely shifts. They can become animated, articulate, and even captivating. Another reason INTPs seem socially awkward is their tendency to get lost in thought. Sometimes, mid-conversation, they process information internally, which can lead to long pauses, unexpected tangents, or forgetting to respond altogether. This absent-mindedness isn't a sign of social incompetence, it's simply a reflection of their deep analytical mind, constantly working in the background. Despite their unconventional approach to socializing, INTPs can be witty, humorous, and even charming in the right context. They may not thrive in large group settings, but in one-on-one or intellectually stimulating conversations, they can be highly engaging. Rather than being socially awkward, INTPs are simply selective about when and how they interact, choosing depth over social convention every time. Number 4. INTPs never finish anything. INTPs have a reputation for jumping from one idea to the next without ever completing what they start. While it's true that they often leave projects unfinished, this doesn't mean they're incapable of seeing things through. The real issue isn't a lack of ability, it's a matter of interest, novelty, and mental stimulation. For an INTP, the thrill of discovery is what drives them. They love exploring new ideas, theories, and possibilities. But once they've mentally solved a problem or understood a concept to their satisfaction, their motivation often fades. To outsiders, it may seem like they're abandoning projects left and right, but to the INTP, the purpose of the endeavor has already been fulfilled. They weren't necessarily aiming to finish a project in a conventional sense, they were chasing knowledge. However, when an INTP is truly passionate about something, they can be incredibly persistent. They work best when they have freedom to explore on their own terms rather than being forced into rigid structures. If they can approach a project in a way that keeps them intellectually engaged, they are fully capable of seeing it through to completion, though often in nonlinear bursts of productivity rather than a steady, predictable workflow. Rather than viewing INTPs as people who never finish anything, it's more accurate to say that they only finish what truly matters to them. Their curiosity-driven nature makes them explorers of endless ideas, and while many of their pursuits may remain unfinished, the insights they gain along the way are what truly matter to them. Number 5. INTPs are always logical and unemotional. INTPs are often portrayed as purely rational beings who operate with cold, detached logic, making decisions based solely on facts. While they do prioritize logic and objectivity, this doesn't mean they are emotionless. In reality, INTPs experience deep emotions, but they process and express them in a way that isn't always obvious to others. Unlike more emotionally expressive types, INTPs tend to internalize their feelings, analyzing them rather than reacting impulsively. This can make them seem indifferent or detached. In truth, they simply prefer to work through their emotions privately. When they do express feelings, it's often in an intellectualized way, such as discussing the psychology behind emotions rather than openly stating how they feel. Despite their reliance on logic, INTPs are not immune to emotional struggles. They can be deeply sensitive to criticism, frustrated by misunderstandings, and prone to existential questioning that stirs up intense emotions. The difference is that instead of reacting outwardly, they retreat into introspection, trying to make sense of their feelings through reasoning. Number 6. INTPs don't like people. INTPs are often seen as loners, preferring their own company over social interactions, leading many to assume they simply don't like people. While it's true that they need a lot of solitude, this doesn't mean they dislike others, it just means they are highly selective about their social interactions. For an INTP, socializing can be draining, especially when it involves small talk or surface-level conversations. They don't enjoy forced social situations and often prefer deep, meaningful discussions over casual chatter. This can make them seem aloof or uninterested in people, but in reality, they crave intellectual connection rather than constant social engagement. If they find someone who shares their curiosity and challenges them mentally, they can be incredibly engaging and talkative. Another reason INTPs appear distant is that they often get lost in their own thoughts, making them seem disengaged when they don't intend to be. They aren't intentionally ignoring people, they're just mentally occupied elsewhere. This can sometimes come off as indifference, but those who take the time to understand them will realize that INTPs do value relationships. They just don't seek them out in the same way more extroverted or emotionally expressive types do. These videos will be really helpful for you.